Hey guys, this is Eckhartsladder. Hello and welcome to another Star Wars Empire at War video, and today we are looking at another brand new ship for Thrawn's Revenge 3.0, and that is the Raquel, or the XF, which is a Sorannan Class Star Destroyer. So I'm going to give a breakdown of the ship. I haven't actually got to try it myself, so I'm excited to look at that specifically. I'll talk a bit about the lore as it exists in Star Wars Legends, and we'll get some cool footage to actually get a good look at the thing. And also, look at that, sweet little Brachus on Anx Minor. So I'm gonna go cause some trouble with the New Republic or some other faction, find a battle, and I will see you guys in just a moment. Alright guys, we've poked the Empire of the Hand, and we also have invading ships. This will be interesting. Let's call out the Raquel here, and this is a big capital ship. Let's take a quick look here before we call in. Actually, let's call in a Star Destroyer for comparison. Here's a Victory.
Navigating to coordinates.
Here is an ISD, although it is on a higher plane, so there's a little bit of perspective making things a little difficult here. But let's call in just an escort fleet alongside of it.
We shall be there
And then we'll see this thing in action, and I will tell you guys a little bit about the ships in universe history, because it actually is quite interesting. Go ahead and call some of those escorts in, though. Not going to micro it too much, but let's see what kind of firepower it can bring against this chaff here. We'll also take a quick look at the stats. So, actually, I'll just let it play. The Raquel has 26,000 hull, 42,000 shields, and 13 heavy dual turbo lasers, and then 12 heavy octuple ion cannons. There's actually a lot of ion damage for an Imperial ship. Compare that with a regular Star Destroyer, which has only 8,000 shields and 8,000 hull. You can see that, unsurprisingly, this thing is a battle cruiser, but also carrying a decent amount of fighters as well. Let's get a nice look at this beautiful model. I love the engines of this thing. The XF, obviously, is some sort of experimental warship. We don't really know a lot about it. It appears in the Black Fleet Crisis, alongside other, let's just call them fan favorites, like the Nebula Star Destroyer. And the idea of that series, or the premise of that book series, is basically there is this Imperial fleet that's gone missing, the Black Fleet, which has been operating in a region of space, and it turns out that the Duskon League, who you probably recognize from this motto, also our invaders have shown up, quite a lot of them. The Duskon League has seized multiple ships, including Super Star Destroyers, the XF, and basically pose quite a threat against the New Republic. All we really learn about the XF is the ship by name. It's called the XF. It's called a Sorannan. I'm pretty sure it's Sorannan Class Star Destroyer. And then later, let me just put the box back up. Later, it's captured by the Imperial Remnant, which is why we're using it as the Empire right now, and it is called the Raquel. And this box also says that it was called the Pride of the Yvathan, or the Pride of Yvatha, when it served under the Duskon League. I believe it. It's hard to keep a lot of this information straight with this ship, but if we look at it visually, there's a lot of things I really like here. Also, the Empire of the Hand is just straight up retreating. I was going to pause so I can continue talking about whatever. A lot of things I really like about the ship model, but I will get back to that in a second when we get into another battle. Alright, sorry about that. Let's just drop the Raquel in against this little force here. Continue our discussions. I'm curious to see how it could handle decently sized Chisk task force. But anyways, as I was saying, there are a few things. Actually, I love the design of the ship overall. I would love to have a few of these in my New Republic fleets, although of course a ship this powerful is not capturable. But oh, it's getting hit by a hypervelocity gun. I like this reactor right here. Reminds me kind of the reactor on the Praetor. It just looks like this is an experimental capital ship. Let's have it focus fire on this. Actually, let's have it focus fire on this Phalanx Destroyer. You see, it's putting a lot of ion damage, so this shield is going to drop really fast. So this would probably be a really nice kind of complement to other Imperial ships. We can compare it size-wise. I'm not going to call the Bellator in right yet, but you can get a nice kind of comparison size-wise. And yeah, we've already destroyed the shields on that phalanx. Our shields are holding all right, but we are getting swarmed right now. But yeah, I really like this kind of bulbous, as I said, Praetor style. Sorry, I'm gonna call you to excuse the voice cracks. Praetor style power generator. Again, the engines look very distinct from anything kind of Imperial related, giving it that experimental look. It's got this hangar bay, which is really cool. I don't think we're making it out of this battle though. So because I do want to save the ship, let's just call in the Bellator. And we will get a good comparison also of shields and whatnot. Because the Bellator is slightly more expensive, but it has a lot better, or slightly better hull, worse shields, but probably a lot more firepower. I think one of the Rakel's weakest aspects right now is the fact that, look at the Bellator. Comparatively priced ship, it's got so many hard points. Now, I'm not saying that that means that it's got a lot more firepower, although it does, but also the fact that the ship is just a lot harder to destroy. Because take the Bellator, you gotta kill basically a Super Star Destroyer's worth of hard points. The Rakel, on the other hand, it has maybe 24, or probably less. So a lot less fire is needed. It's a lot more vulnerable to something like a hypervelocity cannon. You can see this fighter right now. Like, that's a significant portion of the ship's not only firepower, but also defense is gone with just, you know, one fighter. Versus, you know, the Bellator, which for only, what, 20 more points? 15 more points, 13 actually. Will end up being a lot more survivable, I think, despite the fact that it only has a little bit more hull. It's got 42k hull versus 30 something, or 26. You also notice too that the hull classifications are different. The Rakel is technically a capital ship hull using ship, whereas the Megador, or the Bellator generally, has a super capital hull. I believe that affects things. I'm sure Corey could answer this better than I can, but I believe that affects, for example, how much damage a ship will take to fighters. I think super capitals are technically more vulnerable to fighters, just because they're, you know, larger ships. You want to kind of make them weak against their natural counters. So that's interesting. But yeah, the Rakel barely survived that encounter. That's not to say that it's not useful, though. It's obviously just not meant to be in a position where it's taking all of that damage for a while. It's got that decent shields, the 42k. But really, I think you're going to want to have this thing really well supported by a fleet. Its ion damage is really phenomenal. It probably outclasses 12 heavy octuple ion cannons versus 7 heavy quad. So yeah, a lot more ion damage coming from this. And just for context, an octuple battery on a Star Destroyer is like those big guns on either side of the superstructure. So 12 being dedicated to ions is a lot, and it probably is meant to reflect the ship kind of having an experimental purpose. If we call in another Star Destroyer, probably just has a few smaller ion cannon batteries. Yeah, 2 heavy ion cannons. So I quite like that, actually. And again, this isn't going to be, you know, the most devastating ship in your fleet, but, you know, interesting option for a bit of diversified damage. And I mean, I'm not sure who on Corey's team or who on the TR team designed this model, but it's beautiful. I'll ask Corey. Big hanger on the underside I didn't even point out either. I'll ask Corey who designed it, because it is cool. Alright, I think it'd be interesting to test this out against some of the Mon Calamari cruisers we looked at last time. So I'll go set up an instant action and be right back. Alrighty guys, we are back, and we are going to put the Mediator, a 95 point ship, probably the closest direct comparison in points against the Rakel. The Rakel is obviously more points overall, but given what I've talked about earlier, how I think it kind of best works, you know, it's in more of a support role. I'm guessing the Mediator may actually take this. But, you know, looking at the stats, the Raquel does have technically better shield, so this won't be a true... Let's give a second for the Raquel's fighters to come out. There we go. And we will go to battle. So this won't really be a true comparison, because sometimes fighters, honestly, in quick action, fighters don't work perfectly. And plus, human-controlled fighters always have an advantage. But right now, we're definitely doing more ion damage output, which is kind of what I expected. I did think that the Mediator would have had a more powerful shield just before I looked at the stats, but, you know, I might have been wrong. Just how long the shield is holding up may be enough to give us the advantage. Let's get our TIE Bomber in there, because they're actually attacking us fairly competently. And on that note, I should also point out that I am using a version of the mod which has increased fighter damage, so this B-Wing's doing a bit more than it should. I'm also not going to micromanage my ship, other than just to make sure the two capital ships continue to engage. Interestingly, the Moncal cruisers managed to punch through our shields as well, but we're also in a position where we're giving it our full firepower and it is not returning. But let's see what happens. Also, if you guys are interested, you can hop into this mode that I'm playing right now, instant action anytime in Thrawn's Revenge, by clicking the other game modes tab. It's very cool. You can do things like testing what a New Republic Star Destroyer looks like. So if you click this little thing here, you choose the faction that the newly spawned ship belongs to. So New Republic. And then you can... There are various little kind of dots around here, so you could spawn a New Republic Secutor to see what that would look like if it were captured. Capital ships aren't really willing to fight each other right now.
Our target priority is the laser cannons.
Go after the stragglers.
So that's a bit unfortunate. Sometimes that's what happens in instant action. But I mean, pretty interesting. I do think I kind of go back on what I said. I do think the Raquel, especially if controlled by a player versus an AI Mediator, could take it. The main problem is, again, the Mediator has a lot more in terms of... let's just see if we can catch up and finish this guy off. Mediator has a lot more in terms of hard points. And I think probably conventional damage, but I haven't checked the numbers on that.
Take out the iron cannon.
Alright, are we gonna be able to catch up? Maybe not. Okay, I think I'll maybe do one more test. Maybe versus like a... I'm just curious to see how it does against something like a Praetor. So let's load that up and we'll be right back. Alright, so we've got the Praetor and the Raquel Sorannan class lined up here. And this is actually a little closer than I expected. I thought, just off the top of my head, that the Praetor was actually a bit more in terms of points. But no, it's actually slightly less. 7 less than the Raquel. So this should be interesting. Let's go ahead and set these two ships into battle.
Awaiting your orders.
So again, comparing stats, we can see comparable basic defense with the Praetor having a bit more in terms of hull, and again, just like last time, let's move the Raquel in a bit more. Just like last time, we are doing a lot more ion damage, although I think that's because, again, not a perfect testing scenario. It seems to be because the Praetor is focusing a lot of its fire on starfighters. But yeah, we are easily outclassing this thing in terms of ion damage.
Right away.
Let's see if we can force them a little closer.
I'm losing.
Yeah, this is not a great test just because our fighters are kind of screwing things up. But I know they're kind of in broadside. One thing that's nice about the Raquel is it's comparatively smaller than the Praetor, so it's probably a bit more maneuverable. Probably a bit easier to use with Empire Wars kind of dummy pathfinding. And also, you know, you're getting a lot of weapons firing at targets. Like, I'm pretty sure every weapon here is firing at this thing. Let's just get a little crazy and call in another one. Oh my god. Double-decker Praetor. That is crazy. But yeah, I like this ship. Definitely would keep it near the, like, I think a good formation would be have this thing in the middle, protected by Star Destroyers. It's got a strong shield, but once that shield is pierced, you know, you don't want it taking too much damage. But you want to be able to spread out that ions, kind of ideally, I think. You know, once the ions are down, you can have a pack of Star Destroyers or whatever move in on the target. But this is cool. I like this ship. These tests weren't as productive as I would have hoped, but hope you guys enjoyed nonetheless. That's all for today. Let me know what you thought of the Raquel if you've got a chance to play with it in any TR campaigns, and any ship you'd like me to feature next. Until next time though, guys, be safe, have a good one, and may the Force be with you.